Yeah, yeah, yeah. She like me too. No can't deny. When I call your line, better reply. No can't deny. When I call your line, better reply.
What's good, everyone? Welcome back to another episode. I believe it's episode 10. Correct me if I'm wrong. Rashid, how you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good. How
Doing good. Today we have a guest, as you can all see. Welcome on Stefan, aka Overdrive Music.
Thank you.
That song was actually mixed and mastered by you?
Yeah, mixed master. Yeah.
Mixed and mastered by the one and only.
This is a little something.
Go and check it out. There is a whole discography, I'm sure, of your music that you've mixed and mastered. So we'll get into that.
Yes.
Sweet. But let the people know who you are, what's your name, what you do. Yeah. Oh my God.
The dog's
going crazy. All right, give me a second. While you introduce yourself, I'm going to get this dog out of here. So
he's all right. So I'm Stefan. I mix and master music, and I do recording as well. So I have my own studio in Wanturna South in Vic. And my business name is Overdrive Music. And I've been running that for about 7 or 8 years now. That's about it, really. Like, a lot of clients come in. A lot of it's like word of mouth, and off we go. Recording, mixing, mastering. Yeah.
Mix and mastering. A little, just little the discography, you know what I mean? Just a little bit of work. Still growing. So tell me, when it comes to like, obviously, for those that don't know, right? Obviously, you're a mixing and mastering engineer.
Yeah.
Right. So what does that really entail? You know, because obviously you know what that means. I have some understanding. Trent understands what that means, but a lot of people don't fully grasp. They might just think you make beats or something.
Yeah, okay. So I guess the mixing process is taking recorded vocals and, mixing them. No, I'm joking. Like, just making them sound a lot clearer, more balanced in terms of volume. So say if someone's like talking really low and all of a sudden they start like singing quite loud, it's just balancing those volumes, bringing up the lows and then taking the high volumes sort of down, just leveling things like vocals. Then adding effects such as reverb, like your room sound and echoes and things like that. And then balancing it with the instrumental, with the beat, basically. So having it not as loud as the beat or not so it's very soft. So having it so like the vocals really stand out, get your attention.
basically, he'll make you sound like Chris Brown. So
That's the aim.
Quick version, in summary.
And then mastering is taking the mix and basically polishing it. I always have this car analogy. So after you've washed your car, it's basically putting the wax on, putting the shine on, and having it ready to release, basically. So it's loud enough, it's polished, everything sounds clear and balanced. Like the bass is not too loud, the hi-hats, the snares are not too loud in your face, vocals are not too loud. Everything's just nicely sort of smooth with each other, really. So,
It's a well-oiled machine, using your car analogy. That's it. Everything's functioning. It's all, everything's working when it should, you know? So that's what you do. In terms of mixing and mastering, right? You do that for everyday people. You do that for up-and-coming artists. Who's really the sort of people that you work with and you sort of interact with?
Yeah, like you just said, everyday people. There are some up-and-comers as well. Like our good friend over here, Trent.
Plug.
Yeah.
don't make me blush.
Talented man, I swear. Like easy top 3, I would say. That's been in.
You top 3? No, you're not 3.
Easy. So I work with a bunch of people, and like I said before, like nowadays it's a lot of word of mouth, a lot of referrals from word of mouth. I don't really advertise, but probably should actually.
You should. You really should. You're good at what you do, man.
Cheers. I appreciate it.
What got you into music? Let's start with that. I want to know what was the changing point or the turning point, or even if there was one, where you were like, this is something that I want to pursue and something that I want to do.
I remember when I was about, say, 18, and I think that was the turning point. That was me quitting what I was studying. I was at uni. I did multimedia for a year. So we did things like 3D animation, 2D animation. Imagine like Pixar sort of stuff. We were doing that kind of stuff. And it was just taking way too long. Like to render one scene, I remember I was up the whole night just rendering 10 seconds worth of footage. And if you got something wrong, like if the light wasn't correct, you'd have to spend like the whole day then re-rendering that. So I thought, nah, this ain't for me. Like in my heart, I really want to do music, but I don't know anyone that's made a career off or a living off doing music. Yeah. So when I was 18, I asked my dad, I said, look, what if I go back to England and study perhaps a performance course? Because I knew a few bands that had done this course and they were very successful. And he said, like, why do you want to do performance? You can do that in your own time. Why do you want to study performance? Like, how about if you study how to, be in a studio, how to record, how to mix for people, or even if you want to record yourself, like learn how to produce yourself. And in the past, I know or knew of, even artists like, say, Stevie Wonder is fully self-produced. Well, he was back in the day. So I knew, okay, like it's achievable. People can self-produce, and I thought that'd be a great thing to learn. So, I went to study at uni. I set out to do a 2-year course, advanced diploma, and then completed that. And then the uni, they offered a degree course, basically. So I did an extra 2 years studying.
And how long have you been doing it total for now?
So I started in 2009. So I was 19 at the time. So very long time.
And how old are you now?
That's the question. I'm 33. So very long time. Very long time. Yeah.
That's what it takes, I guess.
It does. And even after uni, I had this like 10,000 hour rule in my head. Me and a friend of mine, we both were like on a mission to be producers and to be good ones. Like, we set out to really study the greats, even like a lot of these pop producers at the time, like Dr. Luke. He was producing for people like Kesha. There was a producer, Red One, who was producing for Lady Gaga. We were really studying their sort of craft and like what makes a good song, what elements, what instruments do I need, and when do I need to incorporate certain things.
And with that, with that information, did you use that and like put it towards your own sort of unique sound? Is that what you did, or is it more just trying to like implement that already into what you do?
In a way, we were trying to come up with our own sort of unique sound. Like, you're right. So implement those sorts of techniques and make something new. However, we also copied something that's already been done just to sort of see, okay, where do we sit? So we pretty much like copied a song, replicated it, the exact same like snare patterns and drums and that, sent it to a few labels, and just to see like what are they going to say, like where do we sit in terms of our sound. And it was so funny, a few of them were like, because it was the artist was Vinay, like they were the EDM sort of producers, and there was one label that were just like, no more fucking Vinay sounding tracks. Like that was their response. A lot of labels just didn't reply, and a lot said, oh, you sound too similar to what's there, which is actually a good thing. Cause hey, like, okay, we're doing something right if we sound somewhat similar to what's out there.
On that level, right?
Yeah. I think back then we were missing like the mixing and the mastering, because I guess it takes time for your ear to develop. It takes a few years.
Definitely. Have you ever like tried to experience with your own music? Because I've heard you sing.
Okay.
Your voice is angelic. To explain it.
Backroom action.
Have you ever like tried to pursue your own music career, or has that sort of like you've deferred into a different path of mixing and mastering?
I think I've definitely sort of deferred. I think starting off in 2008, 2009, I always wanted to be in bands and like perhaps be a solo artist, but like sort of band orientated, like guitars, drums, bass, like real instruments. And then I guess the EDM phase sort of took over in probably like 2012 onwards for a bit. And then hip hop sort of is now taken over, I think. And now drill as well is also taken over. So I guess all these little transitions sort of happened. And I'm not sure if I wanted to be an artist, but I just wanted to sort of make music, make some beats, make some instrumentals. I've made a few and I haven't released them yet. I've just sort of been sitting on them. Some nice instrumentals.
Yeah.
And
Hey man, send some my way.
you'll be hearing them. You'll be hearing them. And then I get kind of sidetracked. I start one project, get it sounding like half decent, move on to the next. So
Yeah.
I have a lot of unfinished.
I know someone exactly like that. And you're talking
to
to
name names, remixes.
In what you were saying just then, like obviously you've gone through different transitions and phases of different types of genres. Obviously you would work with different artists all the time and people who make music in different genres. How is it working and going from, let's say, a hip hop artist to now you're working with a pop artist or a soul artist, or like how do you go from that to now working with that?
Yeah, I like that question. I think it comes down to your ear and what you've been listening to, I feel. And by listening to different genres, even stuff you don't like I will listen to Miley Cyrus and pick up something. Okay, like this is how an acoustic guitar should sound, you know. I listen to Nora Jones. Okay, this is how an upright piano should sound. I guess, yeah, just keep an open ear and an open mind in terms of what you're listening to. Listen to a whole bunch of genres, and I think that's what I've been doing since early on. And then you take certain parts of all these different sort of music, and then you you can adapt, I think is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
I think it's very important for a lot of artists. Like, if you're not expanding your range, it's very important to do that, because like you said, you can pick up on certain things. And like, I know for myself, like, you know, I'll go from listening to Drake and now I'm listening to, you know, a more R&B type, or like Party Next Door. And like, even though there's songs that are similar, like just having that ability to sort of, all right, this is how you hit certain notes, or like Party Next Door sings a lot like off the key of the song, but somehow the auto-tune corrects it in a way to make it sound good. Like, implementing that into your own music is really important. So yeah, like you were saying, artists, if you're watching this, expand your range because it's important.
100%.
I think you're sort of saying as well about how different artists have different sort of styles and how you achieve that effect on your own, especially for as an up and coming artist. It's like, to some extent, you know what I mean? Not to some extent, you are influenced by all the artists that you listen to, you know what I mean? So like, you'll hear, like, for example, you've got that like Travis Scott sort of, it's not a trap style, but it's like slight trap in the sense that they'll use ad libs and these sorts of things to sort of rhyme. And the point that I'm trying to get with it, right? It's like a lot of people are influenced by these different styles, and obviously it's your job to make sure that they actually sound like the people, or similar in some sense, similar to what they want to sound like. So a question that I'm really interested in knowing is the answer to is, how do you really deal with that? Because you also want to sound like these, you want to give similar effects, but you also don't want to make them sound the exact same. Right? So you also need a bit of like spice, a bit of flair to whatever it is, the style. And it could be drill, you know what I mean? It could be an R&B type, like a Party Next Door, or it could be a Travis Scott sort of, you know? It could be like anything with an auto-tune sort of style. But how's it that you deal with that, and how's it you deal with what different people want?
Yeah, good question. I think like...
That was a long question. My apologies.
We got there.
We got there.
I think the artist sort of brings the uniqueness 99.9% of the time. And for me, I can sort of tell where they're trying to go a lot of the time. I have a few people that say, for example, they download some sort of weekend type beats. And in my head, I'm like, okay, I'll keep that in mind. I kind of know what the Weeknd may sound like on certain songs. I might have some own presets on like reverbs to make them sound like, hey, you sound closer to the Weeknd now. But they'll bring their own sort of style with them, whether it's they'll have a different melody compared to like what the Weeknd tries to do. Different lyrics as well, different sort of flow. Whatever it is, I think, yeah, the artist most of the time will make it sound like they're not sort of copying the artist. And then with me, it's a balance. So I could say come close to a certain sound. Like if they really want like a Weekend type sound, I can download the track from the Weekend, have that as a reference track, and then my effects and my mixing can sort of come close to replicating that. And it might work. I guess most of the time it would probably work actually if I was to do that. But yeah, yeah.
There's your answer.
Yeah. I think like you told me, especially when we were recording last time, or like one of the first times I came in, and you were saying like, it's on you, man. Like, you know, the artist is in control of what happens. Like it comes down to their performance. Like obviously there's certain parts that you can correct and certain things that you can achieve post recording, but like most of it, 95% of it or 90% of it comes down to how the artist actually performs it, because it's hard to get something that's off key and bring it on key, or like, you know, certain things like that, trying to achieve a certain sound when you haven't recorded it in a way to make it achievable. Like it comes down to how they perform, really.
I think that's probably where I would step in. Like if you were off key, I would say, hey, like sing it like this, or this is our scale. Like let's sing these notes. That's
pull out the mini piano and
the little toy piano. Go on to that. Yeah, I think that's where a producer can sort of step in. I think the artist will definitely bring the energy and the emotion, but it's also up to, I think, the studio and the environment as well to capture that and to help that emotion. I was listening to this podcast just before in the car, and the guy is so clever. Brian Hood, he was saying, I think it was Brian Hood, he was saying like he has this idea of contacting the singer's partner, whoever that may be, and say, hey, like, can you send in a note to the studio, and just like a really nice note to your partner, to the singer, and we'll give that to the singer before the session, and so the singer will, you know, read this note, and they'll feel sort of, you know, like that heartfelt sort of feeling, and that will sort of come off in the recording.
Yeah, or just like if they're making a breakup song, just send in a "I hate you" message, and
man,
they'll really let it out.
If they're doing a drill song, get a video from their ops.
And you can, I think you can really like set the mood even in the studio. Like some singers, like I had this one singer that wanted like red lighting. He just, I think the other lighting was just too bright and it was messing with him. So like red lighting, it was like a drill song that he was about to sing.
It was on Demon Time.
And yeah, absolutely, that's what he wanted. I think they're a bit baked as well, so it probably just helped with that too. Actually, I think that's all it was. I think it was just too bright for them, that's all.
No, honestly, it's true though. Like sometimes, even just with the lights, like when I'm recording in here, like I just like, man, I'm sick of purple. Like, let me change it.
Yeah.
And then like it's something psychologically that just changes. Like even, you know, if I'm playing games or whatever, like, oh, I'll change the color. It's too bright, like you were saying. Like it's crazy how such a small thing can have an impact on how you perform. Yeah. So yeah.
I remember there was like when I was, well, in 2013, we were listening to there was this conference called ASCAP in America. In Australia, we have APRA and AMCOS to collect our royalties, basically. Over there, they have ASCAP and I think BMI.
Yep.
So there was this conference, and there was a songwriter who was pitching this song, trying to pitch it to different artists, like I think Pink and a lot of different female artists. And it just wasn't working. Like a lot of these artists were recording the same song. It just didn't have the emotion in it. So he finally pitched it to Jessie J, I believe it was. And the song, it was a love song. And these other artists, you know, perhaps they just didn't feel that emotion at that current time. They weren't fully feeling it. He wasn't believing it. Even if it sounded good, even if they were singing it great, which I'm sure they would have. But then it came to Jessie J, and she was feeling like love, I think, at the time. And she really like hit the performance, you know, and I think they chose her to go along with the song in the end. And yeah, like that to me just stuck with me for a very long time.
I have a question, right? And this is slight deviation off, but you're talking about how obviously like they're pitching a song and maybe there's no emotion in it, but how does that sort of process, and you can give some insight into it, I'm sure, of how like an artist would get, you know, other people to write songs for them, or how songs will be pitched to artists and that sort of process and what sort of goes on there. And that's something I don't know, so that's why
Please
I'm
enlighten
interested.
me, because I need some features. How do I go about it?
I mean, it doesn't really happen too often in my world. I think with features though, every now and then, like I've got one at the moment there's an open verse, and the guy's telling me, "Oh, pitch it to this guy," and I haven't quite found the right moment to sort of, you know, message this guy and go, "Hey, like I have this song and it would sound great with you on it." Just sort of like timing it. But sometimes it's a timing thing. Sometimes like there is an open verse. I need to release a song like straight away. So I'll go like, hey, like this is a drill track. Okay, I know a drill artist. We'll get him on. He'll just lay down like a random thing. Bang, like the song is done. Like let's release it. I know a guy that can remix this as well. Let's get him to remix it and release it.
Yeah.
But I think nowadays, like in my world, it probably doesn't really happen in terms of like pitching a song, like having a song that's already written and pitching. But definitely like in America that definitely sort of happens. It happens a lot, like for example with Rihanna, or at least it used to happen. There was this songwriter Esther Dean, and you can even hear her vocals in the actual song. If you download the stems, like her vocals are there as backing vocals. Wow. They were demo vocals, but I mean they sound great, so why not chuck them into the actual song? And if you mute them, like I think the vibe sort of dies quite a lot. So
I believe Future wrote "Drunk in Love" for Beyonce, if I'm correct.
There's, you know what I was actually looking at? It sort of ties into this. A friend of mine, he's actually a producer, and he posted on his Instagram, and this was a bit of hate towards Beyonce. So this is not my personal opinion. Just putting that one out there. We know everyone loves Beyonce, but it was literally showing like 10 different writers per song. Yeah. And like I was just going through that, and I was just like, there's like 10 different contributions from different people to like make one song. Yeah. And he was just saying how he's not a fan of her because she does that. And I was just like, fair enough. Like
she ain't the only one. She ain't the only one, man.
That's everyone.
Yeah, that's a lot of these big artists. I'm not gonna say names, but
say names.
You're welcome to say names.
Because like maybe down the track I'll get a feature, but but like a lot of them do, man. Like Party Next Door, I know he allegedly, it's probably true, writes a lot of Drake's music, especially like the singing tracks. Like a lot of it is inspired by him, and like Drake writes a few songs for Party Next Door, I'm sure, but like that's what happens. It's crazy. Would you say that people come to you and message you to find features?
Not specifically to find. However, there have been some beat makers that have said, hey, like when you're working with like X artists, when you're working with, it used to be Kushming, send this beat to Kushming. I'm like, nah, man, like you got to make the connections yourself. Like don't rely on me to.
Or just pay me and then I'll pass it. How much you talking, man? I got you.
Chucking something on the top, we can talk.
In terms, what type of genre would you say is your best, if there is one?
As in
to work in, like as a mixing and mastering engineer,
or perhaps maybe even your favorite.
Yeah, your favorite.
Yeah,
we'll leave it at that. What's your favorite like genre to work with, if there is one?
I think it's less to do with genre and more to do with the artist. If the artist comes in prepared, if they're a good singer, if they're talented, good lyrics, good flow, if they're on beat, it makes my job a hell of a lot easier, and it's a lot more enjoyable as well. I feel like, hey, this person has potential. How can I help this person? How can I get them onto the next level? Whether that be just making their song sound like the best it can possibly sound to a professional level. I mean, that alone makes me feel good. It will make the artist feel good. We're all on like the same page that way. I think that's my favorite sort of thing to work on, really.
Artists take notes.
But
be prepared.
To be fair, I feel like starting out, some artists might be a bit lost in terms of what do they study. I think it all comes down to study. You have to do it. You have to study like the people that came before and the good ones. Like study the greats. In terms of everything, study their flows, study their melodies, and melody is so important if you're doing like melodic rap. Like just go back to study.
It takes a long time to find your sound as well. Like I've experienced every single genre out there, from rap to singing to God knows what, even Afro beats at one point. You know, like it takes a long time to find what you're comfortable with. So like for artists that are starting off, it can be quite like scary even. Like you go in there and you're like, oh man, this sounds terrible. But like they don't know, like it takes like demo after demo after demo after demo. I got a whole vault of music that I will never release because it sounds trash. But like that's the progression of me trying to find what actually sounds good and what I'm comfortable and enjoy making. So I'm sure it would be the same with you. Would it?
Like with beat making, like for me, yeah, definitely. That's you have to start somewhere. And usually like say, especially with beat making, if you're not grabbing loops, if you're just trying to build something from scratch, like you're going to start off and it's not going to sound the best initially. You might think initially like, yeah, this sounds really good. And it might be, but yeah, like eventually your ear sort of picks up, you start to realize what the beat needs and the momentum it sort of needs and the energy it needs at the right spot, how to sort of build tension, and then sort of release that tension and have that sort of push pull. It can't just be like a constant beat the whole time.
Yeah, exactly.
You gotta add variation.
You need to build like a bridge, chorus, intro, everything.
Yeah,
like it can't just be the same.
Yeah.
I have a little question, right? And it's sort of something I was touching on before. And we were touching on how obviously you're looking for, like with drill, there's a distinct sound. You're sort of looking for, you know, there are certain things that are in some ways, what's the word I'm looking for? Conventions. You're looking for some sort of, you know, conventions and things that are stock standard when it comes to that style. But to some extent, right, you're also looking to make what you're doing unique. And obviously you play some part in that because you are, you know, you're mixing and mastering, but also artists are playing, as you said, a larger part in that. So what is your advice to artists on sort of doing that? And also, like I would say, you probably don't want to sound too different. I'm not the master here either. So I don't know. I'm just guessing, but you sort of want to stay with some convention and sort of approach that. But what is your advice in that sense?
Yeah, my advice, I mean, to artists, like you got to be the hero, I think, in every song, number one. And if you're trying to say fit in with a genre, perhaps, I mean, I'm not saying steal some words, but there's a certain sort of slang or language that comes with a certain genre, like let's say drill, for example. But definitely be original as much as you can be. Be the first to do something. And I think if that happens, then most likely I think you have more of a chance of sort of popping up and getting successful if you come up with something like original, I feel. So definitely, and even if that means like you come up with some words, like some of your own sort of words, or your own sort of slang, like, and people will be like, oh, like, what's he saying, sort of thing.
There's always a new word that's trending, and people are like, what the hell does that actually mean? But then something along the line, it turns into something.
True.
You know?
And even being clever with your words as well. Like, say, for example, like BB Rexa, she said, I'm elevator high, but I started on the pavement. Like, just a random example, top of my head. So elevator high, like it's very visual, I think, and it's something unique. She's not just saying I'm high now, but I started low. Like I'm elevator high, but I started on the pavement, so I started, you know, on the bottom, sort of thing. So she's saying an old thing in a new way. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Like everything has pretty much been said before, but just try and say something in a new way. Yeah.
I think, as you were saying, it's like a very big thing is you can say I'm going to the store, and you can also say that 100 different other ways. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Or you could say, you know what I mean, I'm gonna kill someone like a drill artist. Or, you know what I'm saying? We're killing the ops. You know what I'm saying? But you could say that so many different ways. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna put them on a t-shirt. You know, there's thousands. That was the only example that came to mind. But
hey, you should start rapping, man.
Right? No, I'm just saying. But you can say that it essentially means, fundamentally, it means the same thing. But you can say that so many different ways as an artist, and I think that's where sort of an artist's genius shows. Like you were saying, the way you are able to paint that picture.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, that picture that you are able to paint through, like saying something but maybe meaning something else, or whatever, whatever way you seek to do it. But that's for me, that's what I enjoy. And when you're talking about cleverness, that's for me, that's the thing I look at. I'm like, oh shit, I get where you were going, or damn, that's crazy the way you put that together.
Yeah. There's a lyric that comes to mind by Halsey, and she says, "Tastes like Jack when I'm kissing him." Like, it's very visual. You can sort of, I don't know, you can just, like, it's Jack Daniels, like, it's just very clever. And it's also a name, so I don't know, the dude could be named Jack, who knows? Or like an ex is Jack. So
she could have been tasting like Jack.
So, it's a very visual thing, and like, it sounds very fresh. I think it's like very unique. No one's ever said it before. So,
I think it's not only that as well. Like, there's your storytellers. Like, in my opinion, I believe Kendrick is one of, if not the greatest storyteller. But then you've got like people like Gunna or Roddy Ricch and stuff like that, where it's just the sound of the melody, or like even Future. Like, man, half the time I'm like, what the hell is this guy saying? Like, what does that mean? You know? But it sounds so good. It sounds so good that you will still rap it.
yeah,
You know?
point.
So like the melody is really important as well. Like, you've got people who are trending just because their music sounds good. You don't know what the hell they're saying.
That's a good point.
But, and then obviously you've got the people who do both. And I think that's what like really makes an artist like top tier, is when they have the ability just to do both. AKA Drake.
I have one question for you, Trent, though. When you said Future, right? What bar came to mind as soon as you thought of it? So I knew there was something that came to mind.
There's a song.
Because I know what came to my head straight away. There was one thing.
I think it's called Stick to the Models. I think it's that song. And bro, I swear to God, to this day, I don't know what he says, but it's like, I got my diamonds, they earsy blur. And I'm just like, what the hell did this guy just say? But that's the only thing that I'll remember from that song. And when it comes on, bro, I'm bumping it. You know?
Bro, you're singing it as well?
Yeah, I'm singing that, bro. I don't know what he says. I say some random stuff. But bro, it slaps.
Sorry, that was a little... I was just wondering. In terms of, like, obviously we just listed a bunch of artists, but what are the main artists that you listen to, and sort of like, obviously, you've always got your older generation, but perhaps currently, what's sort of your playlist looking like? What are the sort of people that you're listening to and maybe grabbing some inspiration from, you know what I mean, or keeping your ear fresh and whatnot?
Yeah, damn. That's a great question. To be honest, I don't really listen to like a lot of music. Yeah. I don't. I think like a lot of stuff has just been different reference points that have built up in my head, like, with my ear. Like what I was saying before. But I listen to a lot of like classics like Oasis, Blink-182, whoever it is, Incubus, Good Charlotte, like a lot of, I guess, alternative rock bands. I think it's probably just relaxing for me. It just depends on what mood I'm in, really. Like if I'm in a sort of at the gym or something, I might listen to some heavy metal. I think it's all about the vibe, really. Like what gets you sort of pumped. Yeah.
I'm just interested, you know?
Because I mix a lot of drill, and I think a lot of people expect me to listen to drill, and I really don't.
I think that's good though. I genuinely think that's good though, because now you're not giving a biased opinion towards it. Like you're someone who enjoys a different type of genre, so when you hear that, you're not influenced by certain songs or anything. You can actually like have your own
like objective opinion on it.
Yeah, like it's a non-biased opinion on their music, you know.
True.
So, and like you can mix it now in a way where, yeah, like I said, it's not influenced by any other track. So
and I think like just keeping like I said before, keeping your ear open as a producer is so important. Listening to just many different artists, different genres like pop, alternative, like listen to some acoustic stuff, listen to some piano stuff. For a million different reasons, like whether that be how should this instrument sound, like how should this rock snare drum sound, because you never know like when you're gonna need it. Who knows? Like we might do a rock song one day, we might do an acoustic song one day. You just never know. And
if you want a rock song, let me know.
let's get to it.
Let the rock star know.
A guitar or something.
I got a question. As someone who works with many different artists, like we said, and who work in different genres, is there like are you able to sort of appreciate each different genre when you hear it? Like, for example, me personally, if I listen to country music, I'll probably lose my mind, right? I don't like it. You know, there's certain genres and certain sounds where I'm just like, I really don't like it. I know there's a whole fan base of people that really enjoy this music, and that's probably their go-to. But for me, I just don't enjoy it. As someone like you who has probably seen all the different sounds, are you able to enjoy it purely because like you appreciate how it's made?
I think that's what it is. Yeah. When I started in 2012 and 13 making pop songs, beforehand I hated pop. I really despised it. It was just the way it was made and how many people were in on like one song. It just seemed very sort of fake to me. And then I started producing, and I'm thinking like, hang on a minute, like I could do this. I could make some like pretty cool sounds.
Yeah.
So then I got into studying pop music with my friend. He's the one that sort of brought me into it. His name was Mike, and I forgot the question.
Like, are you appreciative of like all the different genres because you've seen how a lot of it is created?
Yeah. Okay. And then there's that too. But I mean, take country, like you were just saying. There are a few country artists that I quite like, and there's others that just sound like too generic, and they're using the same sort of language that everyone else is using, and they're speaking the same way that everyone else is using, or they might be putting on like a fake voice, and it's just not really my vibe. Like take Keith Urban for example. He's Australian and he's singing in like a country sort of American accent. It's not really for me. I mean, he's a very talented dude, but however, like take someone like Maren Morris, she's a country artist, and I can just kick back and like to me it's very relaxing. Some of the slow sort of ballad songs, like I like the way the drums are recorded, the acoustic drums, the electric guitar sounds like quite easy to play along with if you were to play it. Singing very easy to listen to. So yeah, again I forgot the question. I swear I got some sort of ADD.
You answered it though.
I'll summarize for you. You're able to appreciate all different types of music. In other words,
That's where I was going.
Another thing that you've mentioned a few times, and you've talked about study. I've studied this. You should study this. What's sort of your process that you sort of undertake when you're studying maybe a different genre or style, or perhaps you're just studying a particular artist? What would you advise others or up and coming artists to do? Because obviously for you, you're looking for a slightly different thing when you're studying than I would assume an artist is. But yeah, what would your advice be, and what is it that you do personally?
Okay, so you're definitely right about the difference between say producers and artists. Like for producers, it's working out how can we sort of like build momentum, how can we really draw the listener in, how can we like build up some tension, release that tension, and really contribute to like a push-pull for the listener. For an artist, I think it's all about like bringing the listener in terms of say telling a story, or just being like sort of, I don't know, sometimes it can just sound cool, like have it sound cool, like bring the listener in that way. I feel like the audience definitely needs to invest in the artist, like in say, for example, their image. I think their image is like branding in a way. Like you look at like a personal trainer, and most of the time on like TikTok or Instagram, they'll have like their shirt off. I mean, that's their brand, that's their image that sort of draws people in. I think it's similar sort of for artists. Like I always tell my artists, like have some nice pictures. If they're starting out, like take some nice pictures of yourself, professional looking pictures, take some nice like short videos and put them along with your music and have it very sort of visual for people. Otherwise people don't really know who you are as such. Like it was the same for me starting out. Like my dad always used to say, you're just like locked in your basement the whole time. Like you're doing well, but people don't know who you are. Like, and that was true. Like I didn't have any sort of nice shots, no videos of myself, what I was doing when I was starting out. So that sort of pushed me to get that sort of sorted, and it went a long way. So yeah, advice for artists, like, get some nice pictures, get some nice videos. And yeah, like in terms of what I was saying with the studying, like study what came before you, study like wordplay, study rhyme scheme, study if you're singing, like study a little bit of music theory, like your major scale, your minor scale. And there's a few people out there. There's a guy called Pop Song Professor, absolute genius. He breaks down, Pop Song Professor breaks down lyrics. And yeah, absolute genius, that guy. There's another guy on YouTube, I forgot his name. But he'll say like if you type in like how the Weeknd makes a song or makes a beat or makes a track, he goes on about melodies. The guy's name will come to my head soon, but he does like the Weeknd. He does artist breakdowns. So he does like the Weeknd. He does Taylor Swift. He's done a few different artists, and that was genius as well. Something songwriting. I can't remember his name. Holistic songwriting maybe. But yeah, that was like just a game changer for me as well. Seeing like how, because like sometimes you hear a song and you're like, oh, it's that artist, like it's Ed Sheeran or it's The Weeknd. Not just because of their voice, but there's a specific melody that they keep sort of adopting. And I see that often, like even with Post Malone as well. There's a certain structure that he follows with his melodies. And I think once you study that, then when it comes to writing your own songs, it just gets easier, and then you sound like, I think you sound good. Like you draw the listener in. You know how to build a tension with your melodies, and then you know how to sort of resolve it when it comes to the hook. So yeah, like I think that's quite important, like studying.
Yeah, I think that's a very like interesting insight, especially for, you know, up and coming artists. And like this, what I'm talking about is a studying sense. It doesn't even just have to relate to music. But I find the quickest way, or ignore the quickest, the way you will learn things probably the best is just by being sort of a fan of these sorts of things. If you're just genuinely interested in music, sport, it could be any particular field or area. If you're genuinely interested and somewhat a fan, it's like, oh, okay, I see Drake do this. Oh, he's got a different type of instrumental. Oh, like, you know what I mean? You pick up on these little things, and if you're an artist, you'll look to implement and sort of understand and sort of reverse engineer how they sort of do that process, and that sort of gives you like one more tool. Yeah. And like I was having this conversation with a friend of mine. You actually know him. He's a drill artist. I was just saying, it's like when you're an artist, and this is just life, it's like you learn, for example, a particular type of melody. That's like one tool for you. And then like you learn these different rhyme schemes. You know what I mean? You got A-B rhyme schemes, and then you got 2 syllable, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know that much, but I'm just, I know a little bit. And the more you learn, the more tools you have. And the more tools you have at your disposal, perhaps the better piece or the better art that you can create and put forth. So 100%. That was just my 2 cents on the...
Should be a mixing engineer.
No. I'm good.
What would you say? I'm going to completely switch the topic here. All right. Who is your GOAT?
My what?
Who's your GOAT of music? Like,
my GOAT.
Who's the greatest? And it can be... Let's forget about your favorite. All right. I want you to give your opinion and reasoning of why this person or band or whatever it is the GOAT.
Damn.
It's a very broad
so
question.
So many though.
I know.
How about like, maybe we'll start with like a top 5.
All right. Let's go
10, like
Mount Rushmore.
Okay, Mount Rushmore. That's cool.
I would say like the peak, definitely Paul McCartney. Sir Paul McCartney from the Beatles. I mean, he was the first. He was the all-time, the biggest, artist back in like the 50s, 60s, 70s. Yeah, genius songwriter, and I think that's why. Just songwriting back then, and they're timeless, like absolutely timeless. Like in 100 years from now, we're still going to be listening to the Beatles, like hands down. And you can't say that about a lot of other artists. You just can't. Yeah. So definitely, like I think Paul McCartney, hands down, like greatest of all time. Even though like I'm not the biggest Paul McCartney fan,
I can appreciate his work.
I can appreciate it, and especially with the Beatles, I just think timeless, and it will be for a very long time. yeah, other than that, like, I think favorites for me, not necessarily like greatest, but Noel Gallagher from Oasis as well. I think his voice is just very unique. Like if he sings, like, you know, it's Noel Gallagher straight away. Sorry, I meant Liam Gallagher. It's the brother. It's so embarrassing. And yeah, just for me, I think I'm just a big fan of Oasis. So I'm a bit biased in that respect. Who else, man? Dave Grohl, Foo Fighters, Nirvana, just genius drummer, guitarist, songwriter. Yeah, Dave Grohl, he's a man. Who else? I mean, there's producers too, like Butch Vig, who produced Nirvana, and he's produced a few Foo Fighters records, and he's a drummer himself. Just like godlike producer right there, as well as say Rick Rubin as well. Rick Rubin's very like philosophical. There we go. Philosophical.
There we go. He's creating new words. I'm about to put it in a song.
Yeah, he just, there's a way that he gets the best out of his artists, and I think that's what makes him great. He's not necessarily the most technical when it comes to music or instruments, but it's just his techniques in terms of getting the best out of his artists that makes him, just godlike, I think.
No Michael Jackson?
Michael Jackson, yeah, like definitely back in
MJ?
say like the 70s, he had it all planned out when he came to the studio, like all his melodies. And back then they didn't have Pro Tools, they didn't have laptops. He just maybe had a like a voice recorder, and he may have recorded like background vocals on his voice recorder. So then when it came time to hit the studio, he knew straight away, like, okay, I need to do this line, I need to now layer this line, and this line. So he'll have like 3 or 4 harmonies going on top of his lead vocals.
Yeah.
That just made him just, you know, one of the greatest of all time. Definitely.
It's interesting. A lot of names I've never heard, to be honest. But like, I personally, I haven't dived into that like older type of music, and especially like in the rock scene.
Well,
So
Wonderwall, you know Wonderwall.
I know Wonderwall,
That's-
yeah.
that's,
I know Oasis, like I know who Oasis is, but I
That's
couldn't
not really-
name you like any of the people that are in it. So it's good. Like it's good to learn new things. Go listen to Oasis, man.
Okay, perhaps now you can give input, Chan. When it comes to pop, and obviously I think R&B is sort of encompassed under pop, and perhaps rap's also encompassed under that. Who would, I know you said you're not a massive fan perhaps of, in terms of your personal like listening sense, but who would you give, you know, who are your Mount Rushmore in that sense?
In what I'm listening to?
Yeah, no, in terms of like pop music.
Oh, pop. Okay.
Pop, like pop, hip hop, rap.
Yeah.
Wow. Hip hop, I think like definitely Kendrick, J. Cole. In terms of like, I remember when Kendrick sort of first came out, Good Kid, Mad City.
Yeah.
And I was like saying to myself, like, this guy is the fucking greatest out there right now. And that was what, 2012, 13?
2012, I believe.
Yeah. And that was phenomenal. As a lyricist, and even the production, like just doing just whack shit that I've never sort of heard before in a production. In terms of say pop, it's a tricky one, man.
I'd say Drake.
Wow.
For pop, in terms of like pop and hip hop, I think Drake's the greatest of all time. Second and third would be, well, I don't know. Do you classify rap and hip hop in the same or not? Because if we're saying in terms of rap, I would say Jay-Z is the greatest.
Wow.
And Lil Wayne is a very close second. In terms of hip hop, in terms of rap, again, Kendrick is in that conversation. Like those three for me are like interchangeable. J. Cole would probably be like fourth for me. In terms of hip hop, I would say Kanye is number one. And then Drake takes pop.
I'll give you
And
my opinion.
Drake and Michael Jackson.
I'll say my opinion on something real quick. I don't think you can call them a GOAT yet until their career's over. Because
I don't know. I guess like they've been in the game for so long, man.
They have.
It's like talking about LeBron. He's still in the game. He's been in it for so long that you can sort of make a reason for it.
But I feel that like when they're okay, so for example, right? Like let's talk about Kanye specifically, Donda album, right? A lot of people very much dislike that album.
Me included.
You include.
Fucking hated it. I'm not gonna lie.
Fair enough, right? I would say when his career is done, for example, someone like MJ, yeah, people look back at his whole scope of work and his whole discography and are able to look back and say everything he's done as a whole is fantastic. And these artists, because they're still going, in my opinion, you know what I mean? Drake's still dropping, you know.
Still dropping bangers, by the way.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like people also get caught up in their expectations of these artists. Like for example, yeah, everyone had such high expectations for Donda, even for CLB.
Honestly, never mind.
Yeah, and for all of these different things, and like people weren't able, in my opinion, to even appreciate them just based off the expectations they had, because they had expectations up here, and like let's say it could have been here, but just because it was slightly beneath expectations.
I'm talking in terms of what they've already like created.
Yeah,
in my opinion, I can easily say, all right, Drake's the goat of hip hop.
I'm not saying that.
Do you know what I mean?
He won't be. I'm just my opinion. That's
like
just
for
my
example,
like,
right? For example, right? I'm gonna put it in a sports perspective again. Let's talk about LeBron, right? The things that he has already achieved as a player, he has surpassed, in my opinion, maybe not Michael Jordan, but everyone else that's played.
Lead scorer of all time today?
Yeah, it was today. Yeah, right. He's surpassed everyone already. So I can say, all right, he's the GOAT. Him and MJ, there's a debate there. Everyone else, he's better than.
But
you know what I mean? Like his career doesn't have to be over for me to say that, because he's already beaten everyone.
But listen, and this is where we're gonna go. There's two ways to measure your GOATs. You can either go by numbers, right? And so obviously, like if you want to talk about the Beatles, right? They've sold a disgusting amount of records, and a disgusting amount, right? MJ. Right? And then you've got Drake, who's also, I think, is the most sold artist, I want to say, of all time, even. Perhaps.
Possibly, yeah.
Possibly, right? So would you say Drake is better than the Beatles? Right?
Well, it's hard to compare because Drake's in a time
I get it, but you get the point that I'm getting to.
Yeah.
It's like numbers is one way to look at things, right? And that's an objective look at things. And that's like, then you've got what we're talking about, which is more subjective. You know what I'm saying? Because music in itself is subjective.
100%.
You know, like you can listen to one piece of music, hate it. I can listen to it, love it, or vice versa.
True.
So that's my only problem with it. It's like if you want to go by numbers, okay, that's cool. I get it. But then again, I wouldn't even agree with that necessarily.
Yeah,
so it's hard.
There's songs out there that blow up that are terrible, like with TikTok and stuff like that will surpass another song that people might not have even heard, aka Trent Andre. You know, you know, like it's crazy. Like, like you said, it's very subjective, and numbers, even though people say they don't lie, sometimes they do. There's some trash out there that gets views.
It's interesting. It's an interesting point.
But for me, like in terms of hip hop, I don't know. Do you classify Drake as a pop or hip hop artist? Probably both. I don't know, but I think Kanye influenced hip hop in a way that no one else will ever do.
Perhaps also he's someone that mixes and masters himself, if I'm correct.
Yeah, he produces.
Yeah, he produces from his own stuff.
His production is amazing.
I think we should ask the expert.
Kanye's production?
I mean, yeah. It's hard to say because I haven't really been a fan since for a very long time. But yeah, no offense to anyone. But yeah, I mean, like you can't deny that he's a great beat maker.
In my opinion, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is the greatest hip hop album of all time. Yeah. Like in terms of production, the way he raps on it, every feature that was on, like there's no skips. That whole album is just 20 out of 10. In my opinion, right? Again, it's subjective. There's thousands of people that agree with me, but you know, what would you say? Is there a hip hop album, like you said, Good Kid, Mad City?
Yeah.
Would that be the one that stands out the most to you?
That one and the Eminem one, the Marshall Mathers LP, very first one. I mean,
see, for me, I am not an Eminem fan whatsoever, right? Like, but the thing is, like you said, right? There's stuff that you probably don't enjoy, but I know how great Eminem is, and I will always appreciate his work, even though I don't enjoy it. And there is not one Eminem song in my playlist. I always do. I not always agree with you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Eminem is one of the greatest.
It's actually ironic that you said those two because, okay, obviously minus like the hit Kendrick songs, you know, Pass Out, Drank, you know what I mean? There's a few songs that I like from Kendrick, but overall his sound is just not something that appeals to me. Right? And I've had this conversation with Trent before, so it's funny that you bring that up. And it also, I think this also touches on how subjective.
It's good. We've got
Music
three
is,
different,
Absolutely.
music tastes here.
Yeah.
It's good. I like it.
For me, like I couldn't listen to anything after that album, Good Kid, Mad City. I'll be honest with you. I just can't listen to it. Like for me, I felt like the new album it switches up too much.
I don't like his new album. I don't like his new album.
I gave it 5 seconds and I'm done. Like
I think he got
to it. I'm just like, nah.
His story told too much. I think like it was to the point where it was hard to listen to.
Yeah.
Whereas like his other stuff, you can vibe with it. Like for me, I listen to Kendrick. His storytelling is amazing. Like that's the one thing, especially that pulls me towards his music. I don't know. I love Kendrick. I dive into all his stuff, but the new album, trash.
I say though, you were saying like he was doing too much, right? And I think that is a very relative, like, okay, he's doing too much relative to other artists.
Yeah.
Right? And I think, and this is sort of what we were touching on a bit before, and we were talking about how you want to sound unique. But I think perhaps maybe what you're talking about is being like too contemporary or too unique, where it's like people aren't able to relate to, or perhaps a certain percentage, it's a lower percentage that relate to what it is that you're doing, because maybe you're to some extent maybe ahead of your time, or I don't want to say too creative, but what you're doing is too outside of the norm.
But there's still a whole lot of people that really like what he created.
He got Album of the Year, by the way.
Yeah.
So like,
I don't agree.
Let's just say like,
I don't agree with that, but
on what, the Grammys?
yeah.
Oh, Grammys. To be fair, like the Grammys, they give the Grammy to whoever they want to give it to.
Yeah.
It's not really.
it's true.
Yeah.
But when they consider like those sorts of things, I feel like a lot of these awards, they're sort of given. It's like there was a year, and I'm a 50 Cent fan, and there was a year when 50's it's the album that has it's called
Get Rich Die Trying.
Yeah. It's his debut album. That album, like for me, has no skips, and it's like even if you're not a 50 Cent fan, you know what I mean.
That's the greatest debut album.
That's a fantastic album in my mind. But he didn't even win that year, and his was like in my head like PIMP. I'm sure everyone's heard. You've got what else now? It's not coming. You're Not Like Me. That's another fantastic song. He's got a song with Lloyd Banks in there. That's fantastic. He's got Many Men in there. You've like these are just off the top of my head. He's got
Was Out of Control on that album?
maybe.
I believe it was.
Anyway, he's just
search
got it, like is Candy Shop's not on that? That was a big hit of his. There was anyway, there's a few, but I feel those sorts of
In the Club.
awards. Yeah, In the Club. You can find me in the club. Yeah, that's a fantastic song.
21 Questions.
Yeah. Don't Push Me with Lloyd Banks.
Oh no, it wasn't on this album.
Yeah. But the point that I'm saying is like these awards I feel just very much given. I don't really understand how they're given, but I just don't think they really don't mean that much in music. I think really
True.
I think
I'm with you on that.
I think the most important thing is just numbers. In that sense, it's like how many people can relate to what you do. And obviously now numbers are getting, fake streams and all this sort of thing, which is...
Yeah, that does happen.
Yeah, that's something I think it's, sort of taking away from, seeing who's really popular and who's really doing something, who's really connecting with people through their music. Because I even consider music, it's a form of art for me. You know what I mean? You've got like theatre.
Well, we are called artists.
Yeah. But like you wouldn't consider it like in a museum sitting there worth $3 million. You know what I'm saying? But I think in some sense you are connecting That's
I
essentially
think,
what an artist does.
in my opinion, I want to hear your take on this. The fact that there is so much music out there now compared to, let's say, 2010, is a blessing and a curse. Because now people aren't appreciating the work that people are putting out because, all right, there's going to be something tomorrow that drops.
Yeah.
Would you agree with
Yeah,
that?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Like, I remember albums used to take so many months
A long time.
to record. Like, a lot goes into it. And I feel like a lot of singles now is just like, it may last, a day. It may last a week.
Exactly.
And then move on to the next.
Yep.
So it's a bit of a shame, but
Mm.
there is just,
I think
too much out
in
there.
saying that, like, maybe that does bring out who is the greatest as well. Because now that there is such a large pool of artists, there is that one song that everyone still listens to. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's interesting.
To be the greatest, I feel like you have to have some sort of team. You have to work with others. And like we were saying before about how many credits are on one song. I mean, most artists, it's like that, especially in America. Like,
Definitely.
say, back in the days of CDs, I used to buy the CDs and then check out the credits. I just wanted to see like who produced it, who mixed it, who mastered it, like who's the publishing company. Like, but you can see all the credits. Like, I remember Justin Bieber's album. There was literally like 30 people on one song, legit, and that was just one song, and that took up like this much of the booklet. David Guetta, the same thing. So many collaborators, but I feel, and same with Drake. I believe like Eminem's writing some of his lyrics on some of the songs, not on the new one, but some previous albums.
Yep.
You just have to collab. You have to make these teams in order to be the greatest, and in order to be relevant and to stay on top, in order to sound fresh and modern. Because I feel like if you don't sound fresh and modern, most people I don't think are going to listen. So I think in music nowadays, like, you have to sound fresh, modern, expensive.
Would you say it would be important for artists? Let's say I was to work with you, right? We've created a track together. You've heard it. You've given your input. If I was to go to another producer or a mixing engineer and saying, "Hey, what do you think of this?" and getting their input, because, like, let's say you might work with drill artists predominantly. This person might work with pop artists predominantly, and then the next person might work with soul artists predominantly. That's 3 different types of sounds that they're mostly used to working with. Would you say it's important to get it through that sort of process before publishing a song?
Not necessarily, but if it helps, then yeah, why not? I mean, there's no harm in like sending it off to others, seeing if they can add something to it, or seeing what they think. Whether that even be just like turn the vocals down or something small, like that's great. I think that would.
Is working in a team something that you want to work like towards? Is that something you see yourself doing?
It would be great. Yeah, it would be great. I feel like we need to do more of that in Melbourne, especially.
100%.
We need to form more teams. Like.
Everyone's too individual here, I believe.
And just going off the back of that, where is it you see yourself going in terms of where do you want to take Overdrive music? What's that objective? And obviously there's personal goals, and obviously you as an individual working with artists, but also I assume it's a business on its own as well in terms of developing a team. So what is that sort of looking like?
Good point. Like, I want to be definitely one of the best in Melbourne in terms of studio. I got the new studio on the way. Should be finished. What are we in? Feb. Should be finished like end of this month. Up and running, and I want people to come in and want them to be comfortable, spending time there, and getting the best performance I can out of them, getting the best out of them in general, and getting the best possible sound for them. And that's where I want to be. I just want to be one of the best in this state. And to be honest, I don't think I can do it alone. I don't think I can do it by myself. It'd be great to have a team put together, a team of, say, engineers or mix engineers, and even like another producer to get involved. That'd be mad, I reckon.
Well,
whoever's out there.
If you're hearing this,
Overdrive music.
listen, maybe this can be the platform that brings it to fruition.
Like I said, like you said, I feel like we're too individual, unfortunately.
Yeah. 100%. Everyone's trying to do things by themselves.
Yeah.
I think when you look at the most successful people, like you were saying, even outside of music, there's always a team. Millionaires are always with other millionaires.
100%.
You know, people are always with other people. Networking is the most important thing, especially when you're doing something like making music. You need people that are gonna spread your music. Otherwise, you know, maybe you just do it because you love it. But if you're really trying to pursue it as a career, streams is what's gonna get you paid. You know, so I think networking is really important. In terms of wanting to build a team, right? I know you say you want to be the best in Melbourne. Would you ever consider, let's say, traveling to the States? Because obviously music is probably the largest, I would say, in America.
Definitely.
Would you consider moving there to pursue if the opportunity did ever arise?
Probably not to move, but maybe to visit and to work on a few projects. I mean, that, to be honest, like in 2012, 13, when I was really studying, like after uni, me and my friend, we had the goal, my friend and I, we had the goal of, you know, perhaps moving there and getting involved in like with these other producers.
Yep.
Because there have been many situations where, like, say these beat makers are producing a beat in one room of the studio, fucking Justin Bieber's in the next room, and he hears like what you're playing.
Exactly.
There's been many times where that's happened. Like he pops his head in, like, "Oh, what do you guys listen to?"
Yeah.
And then he hops on the track,
Yeah,
and then,
exactly.
like that track blows up.
Yeah.
Time and time again, I keep hearing like stories like that. So I think back then that sort of was the goal, and then it's now sort of shifted to perhaps staying here. I got my family here, you know.
Yeah.
I got my missus here, got my little puppy, so I'm sort of somewhat settled in Melbourne.
Yep.
I think before she came along, like in say 2008, even before all of this, it was like I was thinking perhaps moving back to England.
Yep.
Because the music scene over there is pretty big too in London.
Especially.
Yeah, and I like the sound. I don't know if for some reason I just like the sound of London. Like say for example Abbey Road Studios, Air Studios in London as well. Like they have a specific sound. I swear. I don't know why, but maybe it's something in the air. Who knows? There's
What sort of
like
artists? Sorry, those two studios you just mentioned.
Well, Abbey Road Studios. So the Beatles. Like I mean, they got that studio sort of famous, I reckon. And a lot of like even Sam Smith, a lot of his stuff, his early stuff, recorded there and even mastered there, I believe, as well. Yeah, a lot of orchestras get recorded in Air Studios in London. I don't know, there's just something about it that just sounds different to like American studios for some reason. And that's the thing in like the audio community is like there's American sound and there's the British sound. I think nowadays it's all sort of coming into one because now like a lot of software on the computer has like we're all sort of sharing the same software no matter where you are in the world. So there's less of that nowadays.
Do you believe the Melbourne music scene is on the rise?
I think definitely on the rise. Yeah, like especially drill. Drill's like popping off in Melbourne, even in Sydney. I think even just like Australia in general, it's definitely like popping off. And it's on the rise. Like festivals are coming up. Even like up and coming artists that are getting booked in festivals as well, like rappers as well. Some of my guys performed in Groove in the Moo. One of my guys, Yambra, he performed at Sydney Maya Music Bowl last week, which was just incredible. Like, that's just phenomenal. Like, good on you. But yeah, definitely on the rise. I think
there's there's more opportunity now in Melbourne. Like, I feel like 10 years ago, obviously I wasn't making music then. Maybe you might know the answer better, but there weren't as many studios around. You know, like it was really hard. You had to get your own equipment. You have to do everything yourself. Like there wasn't as many mixing engineers and stuff like that. I feel like now because music is on such a large scale and so widely listened to around the globe, it's become more of not a mainstream thing, but like it's a common thing that more people have.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like now compared to what you said 10 years ago, like most people are producing from home, all we need is like a mic and a laptop. That's all you need, and an interface. And then off you go. Like everything is inside of the computer nowadays.
And I think more people are willing to actually dive into it as well. Like I feel like back in school, you never really heard of anyone that was like, yeah, I make music, you know. Now you talk to all these 16, 17, 18-year-olds, they're like, yeah, I'm a rapper, you know. And it's like, You know, like it's
SoundCloud.
interesting. Yeah, like, but you know, everyone has to start somewhere. Like it's interesting to see because you never really heard of it before. So what do you think that change was?
I think definitely the interface, the Focusrite.
Yeah,
I've got
yeah.
one right here, the Focusrite.
It's easy. It's easy.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
The plugins. Because like when I started in say 2008 and 9, we had like big studios like Sing Sing Studios was pretty much had to go there if you wanted like a professional sounding record produced. And a lot of it was like band orientated back then. Like that was the sound that was popular, like Kings of Leon or Jet or whoever it was. It was very much like rock music back then. And slowly, like people started recording from home. Like once like Avicii came along and EDM sort of popped off. And then a lot of people wanted to be DJs and producers and produce EDM. Like this is 2012 to about 2016. And that got people just producing on laptops. And then like plug-in companies started making hardware that you would buy in like for a studio. They started making that for the computer. And now you've got companies like Waves making like plugins that we can just load up in the computer that do a very similar job to the analog hardware.
And you've got USB mics now, even just like easy accessible ones. They don't sound the best, but like they're cheap and easy, you know? So it's crazy to see how far everything's come, especially in terms of technology. And we talk about this every episode, I think.
And I reckon like AI, man, that's going to take over.
Yeah. Have you seen, there's an AI rapper or something? Damn. Have you seen it?
Do you know what I saw? I think it was David Guetta. And I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. He used Eminem's voice through an AI, and he said something. People were like, "Oh, he's gonna sue you." He's like, "I didn't post it. I did nothing. Like I just used it at a live concert or a live festival, rather." I think you're talking about AI. I think that's really going to be
It's taken over.
No, it's taken over in general, but obviously, I'm interested in your opinion on how that relates to the music industry and how that relates to you and even your job, perhaps.
Yeah,
what you do.
That's a great question. I had this discussion with my missus the other day, and I was saying to her, like in the future, I'm pretty sure like my job will be somewhat redundant in terms of like mixing and mastering. At the moment, like there's been AI mastering for a very long time, like since 2017, I believe, or 16 maybe. There's been AI mastering. It hasn't really reached like a decent level, in my opinion. I feel like a lot of it, like you have different settings. You have like a low, a medium, and a high. And if you click on high, I believe the track is like as loud as you can possibly get it. But I think it's perhaps too loud and too squashed. And like the EQ curve, it's not really sounding as good as what a human can make it, I think, in terms of like the human has, it's just the human ear. Like they can pick up on a vibe. Like what is this artist trying to achieve?
We have emotion as well, you know, like
that's exactly
the main thing. Like AI obviously doesn't have emotion. Like we, as humans, when you hear a song, you connect with it in a way.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel a certain way. Like you were saying, when you're at the gym, you want a song that's going to hype you up. AI, unfortunately, maybe in the future, who knows? I'm not going to even question how far that thing can go. But at the moment, we sort of know what you need to hear, what sounds you want to hear in that specific type of mood.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Definitely emotion.
It's going to be amazing to see where it goes, though.
Yeah.
I think. Amazing and scary.
When you're talking about that mastering of AI and, you know, obviously how that sort of, you know, you said it doesn't do the best job, perhaps I would say yet, right? Because I'm actually like, I have a brother who's studying sort of that sort of area in that field. So I have a bit of, I'll conversate with him about it. And it's something that's interesting, you know what I mean? Especially with like ChatGPT, for example. I was actually having a conversation with someone about that today. I really am interested to sort of understand what it is that you would sort of, yeah.
Give me a second. You guys continue.
Yeah, I was going to say, when it comes to AI, what do you think that it'll sort of be able to do? Because we were sort of touching on music being subjective before, right? And obviously, if it was a math formula or a math equation that you wanted to calculate, AI would be able to do that like that already. So with these areas of subjectivity and sort of these things that are more sort of human and less robotic, do you think that is something that an AI could eventually emulate? And do you think that what would the next step be for you if that was to happen? Yeah.
That is a great question. If that were to happen, I mean, I would basically be stuck with just recording and making videos. I think that's all I would do. And perhaps I would just like turn to YouTube as well, like just get that popping off again. Like as in tutorials. So I would just be like an educator, educating people like this is how you record. And this is perhaps how you set up the AI to mix.
I apologize. It sounds like such an asshole question.
No,
so basically, what's going to happen when you no longer have a job? I'm sorry, that's not what I intend. But I'm just interested because
it is a possibility, though. You know, like who knows?
Sure.
In a
even
few
for
years.
like all different industries, like
like painting. Like there's been I heard that someone got disqualified because from a competition, a painting competition, because the judges thought that the painting was AI, and it turns out it wasn't.
why do
AI,
I feel like I've
but
heard this somewhere?
they got disqualified apparently. And there's been some amazing AI paintings that you just can't tell.
Yeah.
You know.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, it can happen. It can happen. Like, look at all these studios that got closed down because now a lot of people are recording from home. I mean, it's already sort of happening. But you just got to keep up to date. Keep thinking outside the box. Stay relevant. Stay on top. And stay smart. And don't just don't just stick to what you're doing. Even if you do it well, just always think outside the box, I think.
I like that. That thought process to sort of stay on top of things, because I feel people get sort of like attached to things, and it's like you'll even see it with like people who have worked a job for 30 years, and they're attached to that one sort of thing, and they're just attached to it, and like, oh no, that's never going to happen. AI will never get there, or these sorts of things. And I still think we are a fair while away from AI being at its peak, or whatever that is, whatever that means. But yeah, I think it's gonna be a different life for us all once AI is reached a certain level, at a certain point.
Until then, though, hit up Overdrive, get your studio sessions in.
Yeah, cheers.
Shout out.
Well, it won't be long. Like, hopefully the studio build, it's almost done. Like, we're putting the plasterboard in today. I'm still like covered in plasterboard from today. I'm so freaking itchy. But yeah, it's almost there. It's like fully soundproofed. And
it looked amazing even when it wasn't built. So I can't wait to see the results of it.
I can't believe you've never been in that room, like, because
I haven't.
This whole time we were in there.
Yeah.
And I started ripping it out, I think probably in like July or August of last year. I just started gutting the whole place out, and I moved everything to the very back of the room. And I met you probably like how long ago?
Maybe
5 months, you reckon?
Yeah, probably around that. Maybe a bit less even. Probably like 4.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, maybe about 4 or 5 months. And so we've always been in the back room. Like, it just looks like a basement at the moment. Like, there's ducting everywhere. But yeah, we've got like the mad desk and the good equipment and that. But yeah, you got to make it look good. I think it's got to like, artists has got to want to be in that.
Got to have the red lights.
Room. Yeah, the LEDs.
No, it's definitely going to be a sick studio. I can't wait to see it.
That's it.
Well, maybe we'll chuck, depending on when this podcast comes out, because knowing us, it'll probably come out in a couple weeks. Maybe it might be done by then, and I can chuck some photos up and show the people.
Yeah, man. Show like the progress. Like
exactly.
Before and after as well.
Yeah. But I think we'll wrap it up there. We've talked for quite a while. It's been a good podcast. Very interesting. I'm sure a lot of artists have learnt a lot of new things.
I learnt a lot of new things. So
even myself.
When you dropping your mixtape, bro?
Nah, bro.
Oasis, check them out.
Shout out.
But no, we appreciate you coming on and talking to us and all the
me.
listeners. I'm sure, like I said, it was a very informative podcast. So, thank you for joining us. And
what he said.
That's episode 10, everyone. So we'll catch you in the next one. W's in the comments for Stefan. He's a real one. I don't know. I'm doing
Shout
this.
out Overdrive
I'm
Music.
doing this like the camera's still there, but it's not the camera. No, I put it down. It's dead. Run out of battery. But nah. Thank you for joining us.
Thank
man.
you, Stefan.
We appreciate it.
it,
I
man.
appreciate it. Thank you.
And we'll catch you guys on the next pod.
Peace.
See you later.
We out.